Just reading this book is enough to achieve enlightenment. By Chiang. Chapter 1, The Source and Cosmic Dimensions. You can quiet your inner self and speak the truth from the purest place within you, breaking free from the bad habits we humans have developed since childhood due to education. These habits include hiding things and saying what sounds good, which continuously cover our pure souls. Despite having a kind heart, the words we speak are always overshadowed by layers of falsehoods that accumulate over 10 years, a lifetime even. This prevents us from experiencing true spiritual awakening and enlightenment. There is no right or wrong in religious beliefs, the choice is yours. You can objectively choose to believe in religion as it has a foundation in cosmic logic. In fact, this is a deep-rooted trap in Taiwanese folk beliefs. Regardless of which religion you follow, this folk tradition was invented by several knowledgeable individuals who understood how to control people's minds. Since most commoners in ancient times were illiterate, if someone studied for 10 years, they would be considered extraordinary. If they formed a group with other educated individuals for their own interests and passed down their knowledge through generations, it would eventually become a folk belief. The gods I know never interfere with human affairs because they cannot do so. Now let's discuss how we define gods. Firstly, humans exist in the third dimension. Any life form higher than that dimension is referred to as godlike beings. They are more advanced than us, they see things we cannot see and do things we cannot do, hence why we call them gods. Secondly, there is only one God. Who is this? You can call them the Source, as they are the source of everything. Everything in the universe comes from this godlike being, therefore, we refer to them as the Source or the original source, representing the most primitive origin before any cosmic thunderstorm occurred. Currently, there are 13 dimensions in the universe. The fourth dimension is commonly referred to as 4D, and so on. In terms of cosmic logic, the universe can exist in an infinite number of dimensions as long as you can perceive them. Within our human understanding, it is already quite impressive to comprehend the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh dimensions. Through this topic, we delve into understanding Taiwan's folk beliefs. When I mentioned gods earlier, I meant beings from the fourth, fifth, sixth, and higher dimensions. In reality, these 4D gods are what Chinese novels refer to as immortals. In these novels you can see that these immortals often descend to Earth to do various things or perhaps offer you a peach because they still have an attachment to the 3D world. Examples include He Xiangu and others who still have an attachment to life in 3D, people and things within that realm, so they constantly transition between 3D and 4D. In the universe's evolution towards the fifth dimension, 5D, and beyond, 6D+, especially with beings at or above the sixth dimension, 6D+, they are truly high spirits. High spirits absolutely do not interfere with anything concerning life in 3D, they simply have no interest in doing so. Would you intervene in an ant's life? The gap between us humans and them is even greater than our gap with ants. Would you bother about how earthworms live? Therefore, all those gods found abundantly in temples constantly meddling with your affairs, where would you go if your ring fell off? Do you think high spirits have time for such matters or possess such cultivation that allows them to attend to your every need? A god who has cultivated up until the fifth dimension, 5D, sixth dimension, 6D, or seventh dimension, 7D, coming down just for your lost ring? In their eyes, humans are smaller than ants. Unless necessary, they won't spend all day attending to you. Every world has its own rules of survival and cosmic logic. Each dimension has its own logic and rules for existence, life, and living. The first rule established by the Source is that no living being should interfere with any dimension. If interference were allowed, the 3D world would have ceased to exist long ago, as would the 2D world. What is 2D? The ant's world is considered 2D, as long as this creature can crawl on a wall without falling off, it does not possess a concept of three-dimensionality. It simply walks along a line and can go anywhere along that line, it's called 2D. Does it coexist in the same space as us? Do we intervene in its affairs? Hence, the first cosmic logic from the source: higher dimensional beings must not interfere with any spatial aspect of lower dimensional life. That is an ironclad rule. This logic is simple: if beings from dimensions 7 or above constantly interfered with those in dimension 3, 3D, then 3D would have perished long ago, it wouldn't exist anymore. The experiment conducted by the source with great effort is best carried out in a 3D experimental space. The purpose of the source is to explore how 3D life evolves into higher dimensions and what evolutionary processes it must undergo. On average, the process of evolution for all 3D life spans from 800 to 1200 generations. In other words, you must go through reincarnation for 800 to 1200 generations in this space. Assuming each generation lasts 50 years, that would be a total of 40,000 years, which is quite a long time. However, in the logic of higher dimensions, time does not exist. Therefore, 3D life constantly reincarnates within the same dimension to fulfill its evolutionary mission. According to my own higher self's perspective, when 3D life reaches around 7 or 800 generations of evolution, they will encounter for the first time the existence of spirit. This spirit refers to one's own self and not any other spirit entity. After being born as an individual spirit for 30 to 40,000 years or so, one begins to experience what it means to have an indescribable intuition and start seeking knowledge related to spirituality through books or various programs. In other words, your accumulated knowledge and evolution over multiple lifetimes are sufficient for you to connect with spiritual development and find your way back home. Our ultimate goal is indeed returning home. Where do we humans come from? Where does life originate? When the source created the universe initially, there was no concept of time, so why does time exist? It exists solely for calculating space. Therefore, when time ceases to exist between us beings, distance also disappears because without time there can be no spatial separation. Even leading physicists today cannot fully comprehend why quantum entanglement occurs, a phenomenon known in physics as quantum entanglement or quantum entwinement, because when scientists study quantum mechanics closely, they are getting closer to the source. Although scientists have made progress in understanding quantum mechanics, still 98% of the world's population has no idea what quantum is. This is because they are still at the stage of 200 or 300 generations and are progressing towards higher levels. Quantum represents the simplest unit in the universe and serves as the fundamental building block created by the source. Starting from this unit, we can begin to touch upon the boundaries of divinity. Every material world consists of atoms. An atom contains a nucleus with neutrons and protons, surrounded by electrons in its outer shell. This system is known as an atom. All matter in the universe is composed entirely of atoms. You, me, tables, water, everything is made up of atoms. Scientists discovered a strange phenomenon 100 years ago. Neutrons, protons, and electrons are what we call quantum particles or subatomic particles that are smaller than atoms. Today, if we take out one electron from an atom, then another electron, we have a total of 2 electrons. If we take out one more electron, we have 3 electrons. You can take as many as you want. As long as I put these electrons together for more than 20 minutes or even just 1 minute, something interesting happens. When I separate these 3 electrons and place them on Earth, the Moon, and Mars respectively, let's call them electron 1, electron 2, and electron 3. According to scientists' observations, when electron 1 rotates around its own axis in a clockwise direction, they found that electron 2 and electron 3 also rotate in the same direction simultaneously, without any time delay. This phenomenon is called quantum entanglement. How did our universe come into existence? From the initial chaos suddenly exploding into the present universe, this is acknowledged by scientists worldwide. In the beginning chaos were infinite numbers of quantum particles gathering within an infinitely small space which then exploded with immense energy. This event is known as the Big Bang. Everything audible or visible in our universe today, including things unseen, are all products of what happened after the Big Bang. From its initial chaotic state through the Big Bang event emerged our current universe. We just discussed quantum entanglement earlier, where two entangled particles placed together for a minute, will exhibit similar behavior afterwards regardless of their separation distance later on. Imagine infinite numbers of such particles being together for an infinite amount of time, until they explosively separate over billions or trillions of light-years apart. In fact, these particles were originally connected together before separating due to this explosion event. Many religions and spiritual practitioners talk about unity, which stems from this concept itself. Scientists have already been using the phenomenon of quantum entanglement to invent new scientific technologies. In the future, humans will be able to transmit over long distances by decomposing and reassembling the quantum particles within our bodies. For example, if we decompose your particles and use the principles of quantum entanglement, you can appear on the moon 3 seconds later. So in the initial cosmic explosion where infinite numbers of particles were concentrated within an infinitely small space, all these particles exhibit quantum entanglement phenomena. Even if you go to the ends of the earth, you will still experience this entanglement with all other particles. Therefore, when Jesus came down to earth, and preached that God tells us to love one another unconditionally, Jesus taught us that those around us are our family members and brothers/sisters. This concept comes from here, from quantum entanglement. This is a fundamental concept. The universe originated from a cosmic explosion, and all matter is composed of atoms without exception. Look at that feces, it smells bad, but it is made up of the same atoms as those in your body. The smell is just your perception. Do you think dogs know what smells? Dogs find it fragrant and eat it because every living being's senses are different. Senses perceive electronic signals, which are just signals and not the ultimate truth. What is the truth? Feces are also composed of what? Atoms. Is there any difference between you and your tongue? Because both come from these quantum particles, without exceeding even a tiny bit. This is the concept of unity. It contains some religious concepts and cutting-edge physics concepts that can be fully proven. There are no theological or metaphysical concepts involved here. I am not guessing or using spiritual means to explain this, no. It's science. However, only 2% of people in the world understand this concept. By understanding it now, you have become part of that 2%. Why? Because you have gone through 800 lifetimes of reincarnation, so you truly understand what unity means and why we should love one another, because we are all part of the same family with infinite quantum particles within us. They are the source itself. We are just a small fraction separated from the source by an explosion. Many people say we are a part of God. That's what they mean by unity, the great unity. The great unity means that we all exploded out from the same Big Bang thunderclap together. Now let's talk about the second smaller unity, our known universe, estimated by scientists to be around 13 to 15 billion years old. After the Big Bang explosion occurred, a lot of nebulae were formed along with many galaxies and various peculiar cosmic structures. Nebulae in galaxies contain stars, planets, satellites that we know about, as well as many things we don't know about, all generated by the cosmic explosion. It's like when we throw a rice ball on the ground, everything that sprays out from it has the cycle of life. This is what I wrote in my book, The Secret Notes of Spiritual Enlightenment Process, published by Chiang and Culture. It's about the reincarnation of the source. So how do we define life? Forget about the definition given by biologists. Anything that moves is called life, anything that moves has life. All nebulae are dynamic, all galaxies are dynamic, all matter is composed of quantum particles, and all quantum particles are made up of strings. Why call them strings? Because they constantly move without ever stopping for a moment. The smallest unit of a quantum particle is called a string. It keeps moving without any moments of stillness. Scientists have proven this and demonstrated that there is no substance in the universe that remains motionless. Therefore, we have defined life as anything that moves. It is alive. Quantum can be roughly divided into 61 types, and there are many more subdivisions, such as fermions and bosons. Recently, we discovered the God particle, also known as the Higgs boson. Peter Higgs received the Nobel Prize for his discovery of the Higgs boson. The Higgs boson is also called the God particle because scientists have found that its presence is necessary for the formation of all matter in the universe. It is actually not a particle but a field called the Higgs field. The existence of this field is essential for materialization. The necessary condition for quantum to manifest as matter is due to the presence of the Higgs field, which creates everything through manifestation. Initially, scientists thought it was a particle, but it turned out to be a field instead. What is a field? A field refers to a space filled with particles, so when we fill a space with flowers, we call it a flower field. Similarly, when a space is filled with Higgs particles, it becomes known as the Higgs field, an entire domain. For interactions involving Higgs particles to occur, they must form fields. Individual particles alone do not have any effect. Scientists have discovered this God particle and unraveled how matter comes into being, thanks to finding this missing piece called Big Bang Theory or Grand Unified Theory, GUT. Without it, matter cannot form. Switzerland houses one of these large-scale instruments used in searching for these elusive particles, Large Hadron Collider, LHC. This experimental machine holds records as history's largest ever built instrument since its length measures in kilometers. Over 100 top physicists from various countries participate in this project, including several Taiwanese researchers who aim at finding that elusive entity, the Higgs boson. After 2 collisions conducted within LHC's facility premises, they managed to provide preliminary evidence confirming their discovery. How did they find it? They separated 2 quantum particles, one in the east and one in the west. Both particles started accelerating, reaching speeds close to the speed of light. The speed of light is the fastest speed in the universe, which is 300,000 kilometers per second. They accelerated these 2 particles to nearly the speed of light and made them collide. Of course, it's not just 2 particles colliding, there are many on both sides, like shotgun pellets coming from one side and going through to the other side. There will always be 2 particles that collide with each other. When these 2 particles approach the speed of light and collide with each other, what phenomenon occurs? An explosion occurs as a result of their collision. This explosion produces fragments. This is easy to understand because they shatter upon impact due to their high velocity. Anything cannot withstand such a high-speed collision. So let's say these quantum particles are electrons. When 2 electrons collide, they produce many electron fragments. Scientists have discovered an interesting phenomenon. There are numerous fragments, but at last when all those fragments are collected together again, there is a missing piece or corner. Where did it go? We saw electronic fragments disappear in 3D, where did they go? They disappeared into the 4th dimension and beyond. So this experiment simultaneously proves the existence of dimensions beyond the 3-dimensional space. It should have still been here, so how did it vanish? Because when objects collide at high speeds, they generate electricity and magnetism instantaneously, just like a Big Bang. During this Big Bang, an infinite number of electromagnetic forces are produced in the universe, creating all dimensions or what we call dimensions. From the microscopic world, we can observe the macroscopic world. From small explosions, we can see the Big Bang. In this process, something untraceable is generated, a fragment that cannot be found. Where did it go? All scientists gathered together to brainstorm and discovered that it went to another dimension. In our world, matter does not disappear. Nothing in the universe ever disappears since its inception with a cosmic thunderclap. Everything exists forever according to the law of conservation of matter. Matter is indestructible. If you cannot see it anymore, where did it go? It transformed into energy because energy is what? The 4th dimension or higher because matter and energy can interchange with each other. Its material state vanished as it turned into energy, but can you see energy? No. Energy belongs to 4D or higher dimensions. Therefore, this experiment tells us that different dimensions exist within the same space. These experiments were conducted in a 3D space on a facility spanning over 20 kilometers in Switzerland. Things disappeared after collision and ran off to another dimension using this method while simultaneously discovering both Higgs boson particles in different dimensional existence. When scientists discovered Higgs boson particles, they also uncovered truths about creating universes, necessary conditions for their creation as well as all dimensions within them. After this news was released, Stephen Hawking immediately announced that there are 11 dimensions in our universe. Hawking was a very pragmatic scientist who promptly shared this information, believing in the existence of 11 dimensions in the universe.